guys, welcome to the People's Voice. It's your boy, Young Billy, and this is Jackie Delgado, my former boss, and one of the most pleasant people I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. She's a
Thanks.
great, open-minded person, free-spirited. I love Jackie. She's like a good friend of mine, man. I promise you, smart, intuitive, resourceful, and organized, man. You can't find that in a person her age, bro. She's in my age group in the mid-20s, early 20s. I'm telling you, it's really hard to find that in a young person nowadays. So, Jackie, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I'm also really flattered that you think I'm in my early 20s, so thanks.
Hey, the viewers don't know any better, man. I don't know your age, but you do look like you in your early 20s, like probably 23, 24 years old.
I
Maybe
wish. I'm
even
gonna be
earlier.
28 in March, bro.
Whoo, really?
Yeah!
God
It
damn.
feels old.
What is your secret? What is your secret?
Stress.
Stress.
Surprisingly, I've lived my life full of stress up until this point, so.
Hmm. It seems as though stress stretches the skin, makes it really tight and firm.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. That's the opposite for me. It just makes my shit sag. Now, Jackie, what is your current stance on politics? What do you think you identify as?
I will be honest, I don't feel like I know enough about politics to be able to accurately base myself in a right or left stance. I know I'm more left leaning, just because of my personal ideas. I am split when it comes to capitalism. I think it's great, but I also think it's shit. I think everybody deserves rights and get out of people's business. Don't make decisions about my uterus, that kind of shit. So um, I definitely say I am more left leaning, but I also don't do enough research to feel like I have a solid stance on a lot of stuff. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh yes, I respect that. I mean, I don't identify as anything personally, just for the sake of the show. But but Jackie, from what I remember, from way back when we were working at Best Buy together, you were very deep into spiritualism. You had a wide breadth of knowledge about that. In fact, you have a podcast. What's the name of your podcast, Jackie?
It's called Our Paths Podcast. So I am a practicing witch. I do consider myself pagan, but loosely. And the podcast is where I interview different types of witches on their practice, how they found their spiritual calling, and all that kind of stuff. It's really cool, actually.
Okay, okay. I respect that. So what is up with this? I see like symbology, and I really was curious about that because that shit looks interesting right there.
I wish it was deep, but I've made a commitment to myself this year to start dressing the way that 14-year-old me would have wanted me to dress. So here she is.
Oh, damn. Okay, I can respect that. I can respect that. Now, Jackie, when it comes to like Donald Trump and the recent Capitol insurrection at the Capitol, how do you feel about that? What made you what were your first emotions when you heard about the Capitol being stormed?
Honestly, I wasn't surprised, as unfortunate that is, but um it fucking sucks, man. Like, I'm gonna get on my soapbox a little bit, and I promise I'm not prejudiced against white people, but white privilege is a real thing.
Yeah.
And I have some friends that don't understand the difference, right? Like, white privilege doesn't mean that you never get in trouble and you're never poor or everything's handed to you. White privilege is when somebody looks at your name on a resume, they don't have an unconscious bias against you. When you're walking down the street, somebody doesn't cross the street because of your skin color. Like, that's white privilege. And I think what we saw at the Capitol really screams white privilege, because of it was a terrorist attack. Let's be real about it, right? And the media is not reporting it as such. And they're not going to, because America was built on white privilege. You know, a lot of the laws that started America were towards the white man. And it's hard to get away from that when it's so systemic. So while as shitty as it is, I'm not surprised that it happened and it went down the way that it did. I am happy though that we are starting to get terrorist labels on a lot of those people. The FBI is going after them. Shout out to the InfoSec community. My girl, she hacked into Parlor and got all the info and just like spread that shit. So I'm here for you, girl. You do that shit. Do the Lord's work.
Ooh, round of a fucking applause to her, man. And man, Jackie, how do you know all these good people, man? Like, in fact, don't answer that. But yeah, but Biden on his first day of office, he already started putting out executive orders, and one of them was removing the Keystone Pipeline, and a lot of people are saying that it's detrimental because we would have to resource our oil and gas from outside sources, but a lot of people are saying it's good because and beneficial because it not only saves the environment, it also helps the Native Americans who were trying to protest that Keystone Pipeline where like it's going to benefit them in a sense because it's not going to taint their lands with contamination and pollution. So how do you feel Biden removing the Keystone Pipeline positively or negatively influenced America in a sense? How do you feel
So
about that?
I think it's great, and I'm gonna kind of I've been on a rich dad poor dad kick, right? Like I finished his book and I'm starting some of his other books. And one of the things that I feel like is a takeaway not just for finance but for life is you will figure out how to pay for something, right? So don't ever say that you can't afford it. Say how can I figure out how to afford it? And I think that that falls in line with this, right? Like everyone's worried about importing oil. Well, let's figure out a way to not need oil as much, right? By putting ourselves in this position where we're really desperate and we are freaking out over the cost of importing this and wars and all that shit, that pressure will cause us, I would hope, collectively to figure out a better way to substitute oil usage.
Mm. Now,
I hope.
that's oh yeah, we hope, we hope. That's definitely something that we hope for. And since you are really like you have a good understanding of finance, um people are really kind of worried about the new housing market, how because mostly because of the repercussions of what happened in 2008, with the housing market crisis. Everybody's worried about what's going to happen there, if there's going to be a reboot to that. Like, how do you feel as a young 28-year-old moving that looks 24, 23, a little bit younger, is trying to how do you feel like somebody young trying to get a house? How do you think they're going to survive in this current market? Like, is it hard finding a house, Jackie, for you?
No, honestly, this is the best time to buy. So a lot of people will pull out. So real investors and people who are really wanting to make moves, this is the perfect time, right? So your mortgage rates are lowered. 2 years ago, I went for a mortgage because we were originally going to buy back then, and I got approved for a rate at 4.6. I just got approved last week at 3%. So that's the thing. When markets crash and everybody's running away from it, that's when you want to jump in and buy because that's when things tend to be at their lowest or you can find some of the best deals. And because everybody's in such a panic, they're going to put their money away and they're going to save, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying to build wealth, uh, doing things at a quote risky time is definitely more beneficial to you. So I like that the market is crashing because that means that I can get a higher value home for much less. And unfortunately, not everybody's in the position to do so and take advantage of it. But I definitely think that if you are looking to get into real estate, this is the time to do it because I want to say probably by the end of this year, depending on how hard we go with more quarantining, we'll probably start to bounce back. So now is going to be the opportune time.
Oh my God! What? See, Jackie? Oh wow! See, I love that. I love that. See, we need more financial advice for people mostly within our age range because our generation really wasn't given sound financial advice within our public educational system. The most we had was like one block of of microeconomics or macroeconomics in high school, and it
I
was
didn't
only
even
like
get that.
You didn't even get that?
No.
See, bro, I'm glad I went to Ridgeview. I don't know what high school you went to, but that's still sad. That really bothers us, man, because I was blessed to have a good teacher who was teaching us about taxes and how to do them and like made us do like a mock tax return. Like, I'm not gonna ask you how you do your tax returns. That's more or less private information. Don't need nobody else to know that shit. Yeah, but no. Do you
Well, the
think?
truth is
Yeah.
that in order to be quote rich, you need to know taxes, because the more that you know the tax code, the more you can take advantage of it. And that's honestly the problem with a lot of us, right? So we're told to get good grades, go to college, get a good job, but all school does is it teaches you how to work for someone else, right? It doesn't teach you how to build wealth. It doesn't teach you how to work for yourself, if that's something that you want to do, right? Um, and now that we're older, I think it's really important to learn financial literacy and make the time for it, right? It's always, I'm too busy, I have so much work, I've got school, I've got family. Yeah, all that's important, but so is your financial IQ. Because if you're not learning, then all you can do is just hand your money over to people that you hope are experts, that say that they're experts. And then by the time you're ready to retire, if the markets crashed or if they didn't really know what they were doing, they're just kind of like, sorry, guess you're going to keep working till you're 73.
I mean, that sounds like something I would do for a quick paycheck. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if I had the money, I'd give like a financial advisor like $40,000 and be like, "Hey, man, see what you can do about this." And if they fuck me over, then I want to have at least 100 million saved over. And they just have them as a litmus test, make them believe I had only like 100,000. I gave him 40,000, almost half of my income. So that way he works harder. But I mean, at the same time, he might not do that. He just be like, well, like lawyers do whenever they put people on retainer or whenever they have like an elderly person, and they're trying to like take their property. But at the same time, they're like, oh, he's not responsible for anything that he owns because he's too mentally inept to do it. That's a really big scam I figured out in the legal field. But yeah, I'm too lit to talk about that right now.
Well, so not only that, but like you make a good point with, trusting your money to other people. What a lot of people don't realize is financial advisors and financial experts and bankers, they don't make money if you make money. Like, yeah, they can make a commission, but they make money every time you fork money over to them. So whether or not you lose money, they're still making money. So if you're going to be looking for financial advisors and mentors and things like that, you want to partner with somebody who personally has invested in those things, right? So if I wanted to get a financial advisor and I'm looking to go in real estate, I want a financial advisor who personally is in real estate and has renters or flips houses or whatever it is that I'm looking to do personally. Because what that tells me is he's doing his job because he wants to do his job and not because he has to do his job. And he also has real world experience. So if I have questions on anything or if I'm unsure about a market, I can pull him aside and he can give me more value than just being a financial advisor.
So you want somebody who's knowledgeable on a certain like investment opportunity. So if you're looking for a financial advice and you want to invest in real estate, you want that individual to be knowledgeable within real estate.
Right. Because,
Okay.
I mean, think about it this way, right? Like, how many kids go to school for a business degree, right? And most businesses do run the same, but they're not all exactly the same. So, if you were going to invest your money in a business, would you invest your money in somebody who's learned how to run a business via their degree, or somebody who has experience with 2 or 3 businesses under the belt?
That makes sense. That makes sense. Because I mean, a degree can only get you so far. It's the experience that really matters the most. And I've learned that firsthand after getting my degree and not really going nowhere with it, you know what I'm saying? But not for now. But yeah. So this kind of like leads us into phase 2, which is excellent, excellent timing. I really appreciate you. See, you my dog. You my homie, dog. Much blessings to you. But how does that intertwine with your spiritualism? How did that lead into your spiritual aspects per se?
Okay, so I've been doing a lot of growth since I moved to South Carolina. And part of it, so I listen to a lot of audiobooks. Most of them are psychology books or theology based. And I've kind of been tracking my growth based on how I feel about popular books. So there was this one book called Everybody Always, and I had seen so many fantastic reviews on it, and they're like, yeah, the message is great. You got to listen to this, blah, 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 blah. So I get probably 20 minutes into the book, and it's very Jesus heavy. Um, and I grew up I grew up Roman Catholic. Oh my gosh, this echo. I grew up Roman Catholic, so for me, I have a little bit of a stigmatism against the Christian God because of all the judgment and things like that. So while I was listening to it, I realized that I was so focused on the fact that it's like really Jesus heavy that I was missing the point of what the book was trying to say. So I paused and I said, I am not mentally grown enough to listen to this book. I'm not ready to listen to this yet. So I put it to the side, and then the same thing happened with Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I started listening to that, and he was saying some things that I guess are controversial. And I found myself getting angry listening to it, and I'm like, no, I'm not mentally prepared to listen to this book yet. So I put them both on the side, and it wasn't until this past year that I listened to both of them, and they are some of my favorite books, honestly. So that's how I've really gauged my spiritual growth on how I perceive things that normally I would interpret in a negative or defensive way. And that's based on a lot of the shadow work, which is the internal stuff that I've been trying to do throughout the year. So, yeah, it's funny that my spiritual growth has kind of opened me up into this financial area because I had to really look at myself and say, like, where I am right now in my life is because of all of the choices and the decisions that I've personally made, right? It has nothing to do with external factors. And yes, some of them might have been because I felt like I was forced to make those decisions externally. But the truth of the matter is, I am where I am because I've made all of these decisions to get here. And when I first started listening to Rich Dad Poor Dad, I wasn't ready to face that. And now I am. So that's really what opened that door for me, and I really was able to dig into the book and get everything that I needed out of it to the point where I'm actually reading his other books now too. I'm in the cash flow quadrant right now, which I think is his second book. And he's got like three more. So I plan on listening to the whole series because it's got a lot of really good knowledge in it, and I'm in the process of trying to find a mentor when it comes to real estate. And I have some friends who do the real estate game too. Some up in Connecticut who have kind of bought and held, where they, purchase a condo and then they rent it out and then they purchase another one, so on and so forth. We've got some friends who do duplex, where they live in the one side and they rent out the other. So everybody that we know is kind of like in the beginning phases, but they're farther ahead than I am. So it's good. I have some people I can ask some questions to.
Oh, so you gotta go ahead and that's what's most important whenever you get into finance. You gotta have a good network of knowledge, network of connections that you can rely on, so that way you can get pro tips on what to do. And I know
your team is the most important thing.
Right, right. Like, how else am I going to get this video edited?
Honestly, you want to be the dumbest person in the room. That's the truth of the matter, because you become what you surround yourself by, right? You become whatever you intake, whether that be music, media, and your friends, right? So if you hang out with a bunch of people that are like really cool, but they talk about like how shitty their lives are and how they don't ever have money and all that stuff, you're internalizing that, right? So then you start to reflect that in your own life. And I'm not saying like cut all your friends that are poor, right? That's not what this is about. It's, talking about the mindset. It's about, hey, instead of talking about how shitty things are because we can't afford this, like what can we do so we can figure out how to afford it? Right? Part of that is putting yourself in a quote desperate situation, and Rich Dad talks about paying yourself first, right? So if you pay yourself first before you pay any of your bills, at the end of your paycheck, if you don't have enough to pay your bills, that's going to put more pressure on you to figure out how to get those bills paid than if you do it the other way around, right? You're not going to come after yourself if you don't pay yourself. you're gonna be like, oh, $50, all right, cool, I've got that left over. But if you pay yourself $200 and you're $250 short on your bills, you're damn straight the creditors are gonna be like, hey, where's my money? And you're gonna be like, fuck, I gotta get this money. Where am I gonna get it from?
Ooh, you make a damn good point. Oh my god. Jack, see, I told y'all she was financially savvy, bro. Y'all don't doubt that shit. Cause y'all should really listen to like I'm gonna put your podcast in the link for sure. Y'all need to look at this girl's podcast because she spreads a whole bunch of knowledge about not only spiritualism, but I'm assuming financial wisdom as well. She's a very wise young lady to be of her age. And that's really that's really something that really should be looked at. In fact, it leads into my next question, which is, what advice do you think your 45-year-old self would give yourself right now?
Ooh, I hope that my 45-year-old self has gotten much closer to higher consciousness than 28-year-old self is at right now. Um, so I imagine that she would probably tell me to just keep going, keep working on myself, keep focusing on my natural gifts, and just learning every day. That's really what's the most important thing. As long as I'm learning something every day, um, then things are good. It could be finance, it could be spiritualism, it could be art, whatever it is. I learn a lot with the podcast. That's part of the reason why I started it, actually, because I'm a solitary witch. I always have been. Witchcraft's run in my family, but like low key. Um, and through the form of like superstitions and stuff, right? So like when I was born, I was gifted a monkey's paw, which is supposed to be for protection. My grandmother actually practices Santo, but like not as heavily as she used to because she's originally from the island of Puerto Rico. So there's a lot of things that she does, like she does water cleansing where she flips a glass of water over on a plate and she leaves it by the front door for protection and cleansing. She does like white candle prayers, all that kind of stuff, which I didn't realize that's what it was until I've gotten to this age and I'm like, oh shit, that's witchcraft. Holy crap. Um, so it's I'd like to find out more about my ancestry and my history. I don't feel a calling to Santo, which is I don't know. I'm putting judgment on myself by saying it's sad because it is part of my ancestry, but at the same time, like I feel very closely drawn to Egyptian magic. Um, so it's just kind of a lot of learning, a lot of reaching out to my ancestors, learning about my history, about myself, and then using that to grow forward. Because once I can actually look into the shadow self and not see any judgment, right? Like, not be like, oh, you're a shit human being for thinking that or feeling that or whatever the case may be. Then at that point, life is going to be good because then there's no reason to be upset, right? Because I don't have any expectations. I'm not judging anybody. I'm not judging myself. And I'm just present. And I hope that 45-year-old B gets to that point. I'm sure she will.
She will. I guarantee it. I promise you she will. If anything, a little bit higher than what you expect or what you want, man.
Probably.
If you pray to the spirits and if you ever want something from them, they'll always want something in exchange. And that's why I don't get involved in that kind of stuff. My own grandmother, she was in, she's in Beaufort. And
Mm.
Beaufort is like the land of bone doctors. So I just kind of like, I don't want to get involved in that right now.
So there's a difference between like spirits and the universe, I feel like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in my journey, I've come to realize that all religions are basically exactly the same. We just call everything something different. I like to think of the universe as like source energy, which I've realized that Abrahamic religions call God or Jesus or whatever the case may be. And I think that individual gods are almost like larger chunks of that source energy that are fueled by the belief of others. So, depending on how much somebody believes in that, it gives it more power, kind of thing. And we are our own gods of our own making, right? Really funny. One of the horse trainers that I love, his name is Warwick Schiller. He's kind of getting into this, like, he calls it woo woo stuff, but he's like pretty spiritual. And he says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I feel like that's really the staple for you are the god of your own universe, right? Like things are only as bad as you perceive them to be. Things are only as good as you perceive them to be. And depending on how you look at your world, your universe, your life, that dictates what happens in it, making you the god of your own universe.
Okay. Well, we're running short on time. We got 5 minutes left, so this is actually a good segue.
Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. This is perfect. I actually love this. This is exactly what we need. All right. So you said that we are the manifestations of our own universe. We create what we manifest, essentially, what we do, what our actions and intentions are, right? So what is the hardest decision you've ever had to make, and how has it influenced how you live currently?
Oh man. Thinking back, I don't feel like I've had to make some really hard decisions, thankfully. Like, I've never had to make a decision where I felt like everything was on the line. Um, I think some of the hardest decisions I've had to make has been in my growth, has been with my partner, right? So I knew I couldn't stay in Pennsylvania. Just physically, it wasn't working for me. Mentally, I was in a really bad place up there, and he wanted to stay there. He did. Um, and I had to approach him and say, listen, like, you can come with me if you want to, and I won't hold it against you if you don't want to come with me, but like, I can't stay here. I have to go. And I think he kind of already knew that when we started really getting serious because he would see how bad it was. You know, I was getting to the point where I would wake up in the morning and be like, I wonder if I can walk today. And the only way that I would know is if I tried to stand up. And some days I would hit the ground and some days I wouldn't. You know, there's been countless times he's had to carry me to the bathroom. I had to work out of a wheelchair for like 4 to 6 months out of the year sometimes. So I think he did kind of expect that to happen, where we weren't going to stay in Pennsylvania forever. Uh, but it was a really pivotal moment in our relationship, and it was really scary because I'm not gonna beg him to come with me and ask him to give up something that he loves just to be with me if our paths weren't aligned and he was planning on doing something else. And thankfully, he did decide to come, and things have been really good down here. So I guess I would say that was probably the hardest decision, was deciding to leave without talking to him about it, because that was something that I needed to do for myself. And at that point in my life, I wasn't doing things for myself. I was living for other people, very, very much a people pleaser. So it was kind of the first step into my own journey of finding true happiness within and hoping that it would work and trusting the universe to provide for what I needed, whether that be him coming with me or him staying and me having to figure things out on my own. But it's worked out and it's great. So
Beautiful, beautiful. See, Jackie, I'm really glad I brought you on to this. 'Cause I remember that I remember you telling me about that, like when I was working back at Best Buy, and I still think you're a strong character for still enduring through all of that, like tumultuous time, and all of that. I guess you could say like testing era of your life, and you made it through, and now you're thriving, you're soaring, and you're continuing to expand and grow. You're doing great things, Jackie, and I'm really proud of you, homie. You keep up the great work, yo.
thanks, man.
Of course, yo. All right, y'all. That's the end of our show. We got 2 minutes over on 2 minutes left. God damn.
I told you, you get me on my soapbox.
Yeah, see, I'm telling you, y'all tune into her podcast. What was the podcast again, Jackie?
Our Paths podcast, available on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, pretty much any major podcast network you can find us.
And I'll put all those links down below. You guys have a blessed day. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, and we'll be selling merch once we hit 60 subscribers. And once you guys finally reach 60 subscribers, we'll also be able to have a little contest based on the community's desire for whichever design you guys submit. Whichever design wins the contest, the one we'll be using for all the shirts. And we'll go ahead and put your signature, your title, your name on the shirts right at the little bottom cuff. So that way people can know who made that design. And we'll branch your brand out, son. Hopefully it becomes to a good brand and a good design for other people to use. We love you guys. Stay safe, family. Jackie, thank you again for coming. You're a blessing. Y'all stay safe out here.
I know I got you bent so you didn't know what it was here for. I expose your Bible scriptures and I know it got you twisted up.